She waited 10 years without a word of complaint, not because she was strong, but because she loved him that much. This is a story I will never forget. A story about love, a story about waiting, and a promise that lasted longer than war, time, and distance. When Sophie was 19, she met Daniel. He was tall, kind, a little quiet, but his eyes said a lot. He wasn't the type to say sweet words, but when he looked at her, she felt them. They met at a small town cafe. Sophie worked there on weekends. Daniel came in every Saturday, always ordering black coffee, no sugar. One day he finally spoke. "Do you believe in fate?" he asked. Sophie laughed. "I don't know, maybe." Daniel smiled and said, "I think I was meant to meet you." That was the beginning. They walked, talked, laughed, fell in love slowly, then all at once. But Daniel had a secret. He had already signed up to join the army. He didn't tell Sophie at first. He didn't know how. But he had to. So one evening, as they sat under the stars, he held her hand tightly and said, "I have to leave soon. I'm being deployed." Sophie felt her chest tighten. "How long?" she asked. Daniel looked down. "I don't know. Maybe a year, maybe more." Sophie was quiet. Then she whispered, "I'll wait." And so he left, with one small kiss and a promise. "I'll write to you," he said, "and I'll come back to you." Sophie stood at the train station, waving as the train disappeared. Her heart didn't break that day. It stretched. At first, letters came every week. Daniel told her about the camp, the training, the food. He wrote about the nights he couldn't sleep and how he missed her laugh. Sophie read each letter again and again. She kept them in a small box, tied with a red ribbon. But after a while, the letters came less often. Then they stopped. 1 month passed, then 2, then 6. Sophie waited by the mailbox every morning. Nothing. People said, "He's gone. Move on. It's been too long." But Sophie didn't listen. She still went to the cafe. She still walked the same streets. She still looked up at the sky every night, hoping he was looking too. A year turned into 2. 2 turned into 5. 10 years passed. She never dated anyone else, never removed her necklace, the one he gave her the night before he left. She kept his box of letters beside her bed. Sometimes she took them out, held them to her heart, and whispered, "I hope you're okay." Then one evening it happened. She was locking up the cafe. It had been a long day. Her feet were tired. Her hair was messy. She was older now, but still the same Sophie. A man stood outside, tall, quiet, familiar eyes. He didn't say anything at first. She blinked, her breath caught. "Daniel," she whispered. He nodded, slowly, carefully, as if afraid she would disappear. And then she ran into his arms, into everything she had been missing for 10 long years. He held her like he would never let go again. They sat in silence for hours. No words, just hearts. Finally, she asked, "Why did you never write?" He looked at her, pain behind his eyes. "I was captured," he said, "for 6 years. Then I was lost in my mind. I didn't know who I was, but I remembered one thing, your face. That face was my home." Sophie didn't say a word. She just held his hand tighter. That night, he didn't ask for forgiveness, and she didn't ask for answers. They just sat under the stars like the night he left. But this time, they were both home. People always asked Sophie later, "Why did you wait?" She would smile softly and say, "Because he said he'd come back." And I believed him. Not all love stories are loud. Some are quiet. Some take years. Some stretch across oceans, war, and silence. But the love that waits, the love that stays, that love is the strongest of all. So if you're still waiting for someone, don't be ashamed. You are not weak. You are strong in a way the world doesn't always understand. Because love, true love, knows how to wait. She waited 10 years, not because she had to, but because her heart never stopped believing. What about you? Would you wait 10 years for someone? What does true love